and introduce it to all countries and simply make sure that everybody gets to know fair trade and climate ecological ways to make products. Secondly, we would need teams that would check this entire process and look whether all guidelines are being worked at. These people will have to be checked by another independent group who look for corruptions and other things. And thirdly, we want to make sure that unecological firms don't become even more unecological because of this, because they would need to compensate for the increase in their costs, so they would make the production cheaper. We don't want this, and we want to forgo that by taxing the firms depending on their level of unecological behavior. So if somebody's being more unecological, we will tax them even higher, that he has to find the golden middle basically and become even better than if he weren't taxed at all. Why this would make the world a more ecological place is mainly because the consumer would be motivated to buy ecological products because they wouldn't be as expensive in comparison to the unecological products. Of course, one could argue that because everything will become more expensive, this will turn out as a big disadvantage for poor people. We believe that ecological firms won't have as much competition to unecological ones anymore, and thereby will be able to lower their prices and make ecological products for everyone, basically, even for the poorer people. Furthermore, when we have when the ecological firms have less competition overall, there will be possibility for more local firms that are based on organic production will have more chances to survive, and local production will thrive, which will stop, for example, the transport emissions created through transport and so on. Thirdly, we need this to happen because we have very little time in which we still can make a change, and we cannot rely on educating a new generation which will know or which will have the good conscience to behave ecologically. It's simply too late for that, and that's why we have to address the selfish kind in every human who simply wants to give out the least money and keep most money for himself and buy the cheapest products. And because we want the cheapest products to be ecological and people to give the money for them, we need these products to be cheaper, and we get that by making the other ones more expensive and thereby lowering the others because of the competition. So yes, as we said, it will be the firms that are taxed, not the goods themselves. So the firm will be paying the money. The firm will have the choice either to lower the costs by keeping less profits of the entire process. Even if that happens, the money that will be given to tax in form of taxes can be used for ecological behavior and can be used to sponsor all these groups that are checking whether the fair trade process is going rightly and is not corrupted, or even for other big processes, are replanting trees, or supporting scientific research for supporting the stop of climate change. And further, local production also can be supported because local firms will have less competitions to the big unecological players in the world, and like that we will reach local and ecological production of goods. Thank you.
Thank you for this fine speech. I will call upon the leader of opposition to continue the debate first. Here, here.
Can I start? Honorable Chair, dear opposition, dear free speakers. Now, I actually want to start off by thanking you and for basically arguing our point. Yes, we totally agree that products should not be taxed, as is cited in the motion. We agree consumers would be hit. We agree companies need to be punished. And it's obvious why. Companies are the ones causing climate change, not the consumer. And we've seen a lot of companies try and greenwash their way out of this. We have seen companies try and launch "we're climate-friendly" campaigns. Look at H&M with their climate-friendly campaign. Even the Einmal Gütesiegel, for example. That is supposed to be pro-environment, but we've seen scandal after scandal describing how that is not the case. So how do we know what is ecological? We have these so-called certificates that, as we have just seen, do not work. Certificates that we know are not what they state they are. So how do we want to define this? And if we look at companies, the BP ecological footprint, again, this is by BP, British Petrol. You really think they were trying to be the most ecologically friendly? No, this is shifting the blame to the consumer. We do not support this. We support fighting the companies, and I am very glad that you agree with us on this point. We shift the blame to the company and not to the consumer. So why? Well, you've already mentioned this. Poor people will be hit. And if they can't afford the product, they can't afford fair trade products. Right now, fair trade products are often 200% the price of normal products. Many people who make minimum wage can just not afford that. And that is also why we want to fine corporations. And I emphasize fine. We've seen that this works, and the EU has recently imposed a ban forcing companies to have fair trade supply chains. And it is a great idea because we know that this will work. And we've even seen we can go even further. Just recently, we saw that 2 days ago, actually, Shell was fined by a Dutch court that they must reduce their CO2 emissions by nearly 50% by the year 2030. So even if fines do not work, even if fines are passed onto the consumer, we can counteract this. We can force corporations to work in different ways. We do not need to tax the products. And even if we did, don't forget this. If the consumers will know that we are the countries that are fine or putting tariffs on these products. They know that it is our fault, the country's fault, that the products are more expensive. If they associate their government's inability, their government's making life worse and more expensive for them with climate change, they will naturally be against working towards climate change. Because even though many of us know that we need to take in short-term losses for the greater good in the future, not everybody knows that. Why should a person who makes $1,200 a month have to pay twice as much for their food? Why? We have seen this, that we must fine corporations and instead of using tariffs on consumers. And I am very, very glad that we have already come to consensus almost. And just before we go, I want to reiterate one more thing. The corporations, not the consumer, are polluting. Corporations, not consumers, are the ones that have to pay. Thank you.
Thank you for this fine speech. Then I call upon the Deputy Prime Minister to continue the debate for us. Here.
Yeah, so thank you for what the opposition has mentioned. I think you didn't get something there. If there isn't the competition anymore that is in place right now, ecological friendly products could be cheaper. And also the taxes that would be won through those which are imposed ecological food that would go down because we could fund that through the taxes. Also, the big firms often do have a lot of money. The owners are millionaires, and it doesn't hurt them if they pay a little bit more for what they're producing. And so it would be a win-win situation. If they are acting according to regulation and guidelines, they will produce ecologically friendly, and that would help us all in the fight against climate change. And if they would have to pay the taxes because they're not producing ecologically friendly, they would fund ecologically friendly actions against climate change. So we would gain money to fund those actions. Secondly, I would like to introduce an example. At the moment, it is discussed if airplanes are going to be taxed for the CO2 emissions. And this law could simply be expanded, so it's not that hard to make that law. And as with airplanes, food production or any other products that are produced, there is a high level of CO2 which has to be reduced in the next years. That would be a fast way of doing so. Thirdly, I would like to address the fair trade aspect of this problem. If we would impose those taxes, it would set an end to at least a part of the inhumane conditions that are in place at the moment, as we see in many countries in Asia where clothing is produced, for example. There's a lot of CO2 emissions there. So if the companies try to reduce that, they also might pay more in local productions or something like that. So they would finally have to pay their workers more than they do at the moment. And that will be a benefit for all parties. Yeah, and again, I would like to mention that the local produced food is often even healthier than the food produced overseas. So if that would be cheaper to buy, also the people would live healthier. Thank you.
Thank you for this fine speech. Before I call upon the deputy leader for position, I just need a short time to finish writing some stuff.
Ja, danke. So. May I already start or?
Just a second.
Okay, of course.
Now I call upon the deputy leader for position to do the debate first. Here, here.
Thank you very much. Honorable Chair, honorable colleagues, and honorable free speakers. I would like to start my speech by acknowledging the slightly strange direction this debate has gone into, considering that both the government and us seem to be arguing essentially the same side, because we are of the opinion that products should not be taxed, but the corporations are. But so does the government, which is slightly odd in my opinion. However, if we're already on this train of argumentation, I will now elaborate again why we believe that products should not be taxed. Because the thing is this, products are what people consume. So taxes on the products are what the people is going to affect. Simple logic. And there's one little issue that we would definitely need to consider in this. And that is that ecologically produced products are expensive. So not everyone can actually afford them. And those exact people who can't afford the ecologically produced products are the ones that it's going to hit when we impose taxes on products that are not ecologically produced. Because think of it this way, how should it help anyone if we make the life worse for these people? Because if they already can't really afford ecologically produced things, then how are they going to be able to live if we make the things that they actually can afford, the reasonably cheap products, which maybe aren't that eco-friendly? How is it going to help if we make those products more expensive? Because the average consumers are already the ones that get a lot of the blame from climate change, when in reality, they are not the ones at fault. For example, the personal ecological footprint, which is used all over the world to measure an individual's impact on climate change, was invented by a giant corporation, BP, British Petrol to be precise. And the only reason for that is to shift the blame off of the giant corporations and onto the normal people. This is another point that I really would like to address. And that is that I don't see how taxes on products that are essentially going to hit the people is going to make climate action any more popular amongst the general population. Because look at this. If the already socially struggling people cannot afford the ecologically produced things, and then the same people who are already making the ecologically produced things so expensive, then say, oh, now the other things are also more expensive. The only thing that's going to make is form a growing disdain against climate activists in the general population. And in no way is that what we want. So if I'm reiterating here, proposing taxes for not ecologically produced products is not at all the right direction. Because essentially, this hits the average person, the average consumer, who is not responsible for the climate action that the companies do not take. Because, to be honest, there are people who just need to get by. And that is not going to help them if we make everything more expensive. Because not everyone can afford ecologically produced things. Some people just need to have enough money to just barely get by. They can't do the decision, oh, if I'm going to buy organic food today or not. They simply cannot. And the only thing that we would do by imposing this new law and these taxes is make life worse for them without actually really bettering anything. That is why exactly we are of the opinion that corporations should be taxed, because the corporations are the ones that do have the power to change. As we can see, Shell, a giant oil company, has now recently been ordered by a Dutch court to get more eco-friendly. Otherwise, they're going to have a giant fine imposed on them. What did they do? They actually already are showing action there. So essentially, finding the corporations directly is what actually imposes change. But only hurting the consumers is going to do nothing except make them hate climate activists. And I just simply do not see how that is supposed to help anyone. And this is such an important topic that we can really not lose time by attacking the normal people who need to change this. Just by making them grow a disdain for climate activists is not going to help anyone. So please, don't attack the people, because the corporations are the ones that pollute, so the corporations are the ones that need to pay. Thank you very much.
Thank you for this fine speech. Then I call upon the first free speaker to continue the debate first. Here, here.
Okay, I wish a lovely afternoon to everybody. Thanks to the jury, thanks to the opposition, of course, also to the government. Straight away, I have to clearly say that I side with the opposition for two simple reasons. The first being that I don't think, or that I think that the government in a certain way kind of misrepresented the mention of this debate. And second of all, because what the opposition has cited as their, or has mentioned as their preferred solution is just a more correct way. But I still also have some differences there, which I would like to explain now. Now, to pick up a point first that the last speaker for the opposition mentioned, that it is better to tax the corporations instead of the everyday guy. I totally agree with that. And it is very reasonable also if you think of the global activism for climate. Nobody really likes big corporations. Everyone knows that they are basically the ones who are causing the real climate problems on the world. So no one will really have a problem if they are the ones who are now paying their fair share in taxes, instead of the everyday guy who often maybe struggles to get by with the money that they earn. But where I might differ, or at least offer some extra perspectives into how such a tax could be rolled out, mention that the CO2 tax, or this, however you want to call it, tax for corporations should, in my opinion, definitely, if we're talking about a European economic room now, that this tax should definitely be rolled out EU-wide. Why is that? Simply explained, because we can already see now that certain countries like Luxembourg, for example, or Ireland, are certain tax havens where companies go to avoid taxes at all. And we definitely need to avoid this happening again with a certain CO2 tax. And that is why I think that it is crucial that we roll out a certain CO2 or even also fair trade tax EU-wide, so the big corporations have no possibility of getting around it. And yeah, also I want to mention, I think the government might have mentioned that, but I was not really sure if that's exactly what they meant. But I also think that the CO2 tax needs to be combined with certain laws for delivery chains. I think they're rolling out a certain law in Germany now to make sure that not only inside Europe or inside Austria, for example, people or corporations are held to certain levels of efficacy with their employers, but also that in other countries, yes, I will now finish. This is my last sentence. Company all over in India. That is, in my opinion, how this law should be rolled out. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. As I understood you, yes?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the bell at first. That's why I didn't react, sorry.
My bad. Unfortunately, it doesn't go louder on my phone.
Yes, that's why I'm writing in the chat 1 minute and 2 minutes and 2:30. And after 15 seconds, after you overextended your time, I will just hold up my hands because I will not write anything anymore. And I will disregard everything you say after this moment. So please try to stay in this time and time yourself. It makes sense. So as I understood, you were on side opposition.
Yes.
So government can make a 1 minute reply speech. Does government want to take this opportunity?
Yes, I'd like to take the opportunity. So if I may, first of all, I'm sorry about the misunderstanding. Obviously, we did something wrong, but I believe that taxing companies or the product itself in the end doesn't make that big difference, because if we tax the product directly of an unecological company, the company will want to keep the price down because they don't want to lose their customers. So they will push their price down to meet the same price as they had before with their taxes, and thereby basically it will be their money that will come to the state, not that of the consumers, because the price of the product will stay the same. That's what the companies want. That's what the big bosses want. They don't want to lose the customers, and that's the only way they would do it. Then I'd like to say ecological products are more healthy, more tasty. Most people want them. And when they would have the same price as unecological products or even a lower one, people would buy them directly. We would achieve that price by sponsoring these products by the taxes we get from the big corporations. Thank you.
Thank you for this fine speech. Then I call upon the second free speaker to continue the debate for us. Here.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, I take the side of the opposition as well, because I was focusing on a rather different aspect than you did. I was thinking about the worker from China in a fabric, because those people do not earn enough money. But the problem is if you make these tasks, then the company couldn't produce as cheap as they do right now, which might be a good thing because you think now they're getting paid well, but that's not going to happen. Instead, what they would be doing is that they will send some workers away, so have less worker. Therefore, some families would be there without any work at all, which would be very bad because in these countries incredibly difficult to get work. And I think that these tasks might be a problem for that now there are many more people which are unemployed. Furthermore, is that most customers only buy from those companies because they are cheap. And if their products were to be more expensive, they wouldn't buy them at all anymore. Means then those companies might not be able to even keep going. And as I said, that might sound good because you think, yeah, they will be paid more, but I don't think that that is going to happen in the future. So that is why I see a very, very big problem with that. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for this fine speech. Because Annabelle was inside opposition, government can do another reply speech. Do they want to do that?
Yeah, I would like to do the reply speech.
Yes.
So you have mentioned cheap workers in China or other Asian, African countries, whatever. I don't think that the problem here is that the companies would stop employing those workers if they would have to pay taxes. I think we would have to tackle the problem there at the root, and it's not the right thing to say, oh, they don't have a bad workplace anymore. They have no workplace. It's I think we have to establish there an environment where there can be workplaces which are paid as a adequate high rate. And you also have mentioned that the companies might die out and not be able to sustain themselves. I don't think that is a problem with really big companies, but because they already have really much money, and if they okay. Thank you.
Thank you for this fine speech. Then I call upon the third free speaker to continue the debate for us. Here.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Felix Chiren-Khalil, and I'm going to be the third and final free speaker for today's debate. And I'm definitely on the side of the government because one simple fact, our planet is dying, and that is a fact. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's not a Reddit video. It's nothing. It's a fact. And we need to take measures, even if they are drastic ones. Yes, like the previous members mentioned, yes, it will affect the everyday life of simple people, normal people. That is true. I agree. But if we don't make changes now, it will affect them in the future. Maybe not in the next 5 years, next 10 years, but the next 50 years for their children, their grandchildren. And I'm 100% sure that we want every single person here wants their children to have a good life and their grandchildren to have a good life. And you cannot say anything against that. And to do so, we have to make hard measures. We had the chance long time ago, but now we have 10 to 15 years. That's it. After these 10 to 15 years, it's irreversible and we can't do anything. We have to work together to save the planet. That's the only way. And we are the reason that the planet is in this state. So we better, it's our obligation to save it too. So we better fix it. These multi-billion companies make multi-billion turnovers, and these additional taxes can be used to prevent or even help other countries adapt to these situations. This will make the companies think, and as soon as the economic giants change, the others will go with them. Why is that? Because the giants decide the trend, and this is the trend we need to switch to. The prime example, Apple. As soon as Apple brings a new feature on a phone, every other phone company copies them. And that should be the trend we should be aiming for. And ladies and gentlemen, we need to take the step now, otherwise it's going to be too late. Mark my words, this measure will be known as the first step to be saving our planet. Thank you very much.
Thank you for this fine speech. Because Felix was inside government, the opposition can make a 1-minute reply speech. Does the opposition want to do that?
Yes, we would.
Right. And the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you for your speech. I would like to address a couple of things. First of all, you said the planet is dying, and I wholeheartedly agree. This planet is dying. But the thing is, but if only a couple of people do it, it will not work. This is a group effort, an effort that encompasses the entire planet. Every single person needs to believe in this goal. And simply taxing things will not be the solution. Consumers do not have the power. Consumers are merely pawns that are forced by a selection of a few products to make up their mind. They cannot change the world exclusively by themselves. We need to work where we can. And the people that can change the things are the corporations. And this is also why we believe corporations need to be taxed. And don't forget, if we, the government, make it clear that we are the ones hurting our own people, we will not have this group effort. We need this group effort, and this group effort is the only way, and this is the only way we can achieve it. Thank you.
Thank you for this fine speech. Then I call upon the opposition whip to continue the debate for us. Here, here.
Okay, well, esteemed judges, esteemed speakers, we have come to a very interesting aspect of this debate. The question is, will taxes help us? How can we change? How can we impact consumers? How can we impact companies to cause a change, to provide and help decrease issues caused by global warming and climate change? Now, we as the opposition have made it very clear that we cannot ever guarantee by adding taxes whether these taxes are genuinely going to go to proper streams, to proper fundings. I am aware that the government has on multiple occasions mentioned what it might do with those fundings, with those taxes by sponsoring certain initiatives to cause improvements. However, you cannot truly guarantee that. Same as you cannot really truly guarantee whether the climate-friendly products that are being advertised are really that climate-friendly. Companies have always achieved to evade taxes, to evade certain regulations, and manipulate things to make it seem better. And the modern thing, the newest thing is that companies are greenwashing certain things. As my colleague previously mentioned, H&M, they have a sustainable line. However, they are one of the greatest impactors in fast fashion, causing humongous problems and issues in climate change. Therefore, you cannot really guarantee that. Previous speakers of the government mentioned that only the tax, the rich would be affected by that, but that is absolutely not true, as my colleagues have specified and made clear. Everyone is going to be affected by that. And companies will, at the end of the day, find some sort of legal framework or some sort of way to evade these taxes or to put them onto further down the line to the consumers. It's going to affect the consumers. It's going to make the companies more corrupt, and it's helping us nowhere near to climate change. It's not solving any problems. It's only creating more and even maybe causing some people to lose jobs down the line. Tax evasion is not only the one thing. The other thing is, if firms get taxed, they will have maybe someone getting fired because of it, because they need more money and they will not deprive themselves of that. It doesn't matter. The climate doesn't matter to them, and consumers as well. At the end of the day, no one's going to get more affected by this than the poor. No one aside the poor and who are disregarded. The previous free speaker mentioned that we will not have a world soon, and he's correct by that. But 15, 20 years down the line, if we have these kind of problems and regulations, we will have also families who are suffering, families that do not have enough money because they have to pay for huge amounts of taxes for un-eco-friendly products. And the question even again is, what is even eco-friendly in this definition? Companies can somehow manipulate that, somehow find some sort of way to greenwash their products. It's not truly a guarantee, and sadly will also not be. Thank you.
Thank you for this fine speech. Then I call upon the government whip to close the debate first. Here.
So first I would like to thank the government, the opposition, and the free speakers for all the arguments they brought in. I think this was a very interesting debate so far, and we discussed a lot of important aspects of this topic. First, let me bring back to your mind what our first speaker said. We framed this motion in a specific way. We said that yes, products would be taxed, but therefore we believe this would be pretty similar to if firms would be taxed. Let me explain this with an example. For example, one firm is producing apples in a non-climate-friendly way. Then those apples would be taxed with an additional tax because they're not produced climate-friendly. So the firm now has two options. Either they push those additional costs down to the customers, which would mean that the apples would maybe cost 50 cents more. Or because they don't want to lose the customers, they would keep those additional costs to themselves and pay that by themselves. So here, let me explain why we think this is a win-win situation for the climate in both ways. Well, if we push additional costs down to consumers, the firm loses consumers because they go to a different firm that produces apples cheaper. And who does produce apples cheaper? Climate-friendly firms, because they will get funded for that. They will get profits. And if the firm continues to take the money by themselves because they don't want to lose customers, that's fine as well, because then there will be money to then fund climate-friendly options more, which is why we believe money-wise, this is a great idea, and we don't really see a difference. And if we put it on we believe that if we put it on a product, it's automatically put on the firms. Our second argument was that we don't believe that that talking is enough. As one of the free speakers said, time is pressing, and we believe that too. Time is really pressing, and I think we saw in the last years that talking isn't enough. We need action right now. We need action to save this planet for our children and grandchildren, which is why we believe additional taxes would be a good action. Furthermore, maybe this would, some customers would suffer. I agree with you, because products may get more expensive to some extent. But let me explain one thing. Saying that customers should not be affected is wrong, because if we only push the burden of we need to get more climate friendly off to big companies and big firms, we take ourselves, the people, out of that. We say we don't have any power, but I strongly believe that the power lays with the people. People do have the power to change. If we change, big companies have to change. Look at this. Meat right now is one of the cheapest goods, and this has not been the same way 100 years ago. 100 years ago, meat was a special product. And yes, I agree this will change if we give additional taxes, but I believe that's a good thing. We need to change. We need to adapt to save this planet. And I think we have already seen that customers have the power to change and have the power to change the system. 5 years ago in the supermarket, plant-based milk was nearly nowhere found. And right now we have options over options. You can buy milk made of almonds, milk made of soya, and not because companies decided, oh, let's introduce this product, because we, the customers, wanted that product. We started buying that product. So I strongly, and my team strongly believes that change starts with us, change starts with the customers, which is why it's okay to push down those costs on the customers. And we believe that often it's the way that poor people see other products being cheaper, which is why we believe with giving them, making other products, like making unecological products more expensive, we would give them the incentive, the needed incentive to finally start shifting their mind, or even if they already shifted their mind, but start taking the action that's so strongly needed. And therefore, we believe that pushing down a tax would be a good idea. Yeah, to sum it up, we think it would give us more, or would give more money to fund climate-friendly actions. It's time to take actions right now, and we think it's okay to put a bit of the burden on the customers, but equally contribute to the companies. And most of all, we think this measure would make climate-friendly products more attractive, which is why we believe this is the right measure to take. Thank you very much.
Thank you for this fine speech, and thank you for this fine debate. And again, congratulations making it to the final.